Something strange is stirring beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, and forecasters around the world cannot stop talking about it. A vast stretch of water, thousands of kilometers wide, has been heating up at a pace that satellite records have never captured before. Scientists who spend their careers studying ocean temperatures say what they are seeing right now is not just unusual, it is historic. And the scary part is, this is only the beginning. For months, quiet signals had been building in the depths of the tropical Pacific. Warm water was creeping upward from below the surface, hidden from ordinary observation, slowly preparing to erupt into the atmosphere above. By the middle of this year, that hidden heat broke through. The ocean surface began warming rapidly, and within weeks, meteorological agencies across the globe confirmed what many had feared. El Niño had returned, and this time it was not behaving like any El Niño before it. Normally, El Niño develops gradually over many months, gently nudging global weather patterns in one direction or another, but the numbers coming out of climate monitoring centers this year are breaking the mold entirely. In the key monitoring region of the Central Pacific, ocean temperatures have surged more than 2 full degrees Celsius above average, a level rarely seen even during the strongest El Niño events on record. Some of the most respected climate agencies in the world are now openly using the word super to describe what may be coming this winter. The United States Climate Prediction Center has revised its outlook multiple times in just a few weeks, each time raising the odds higher. What started as roughly an 80% chance of a very strong event has now climbed above 90%. Forecasters are even estimating a meaningful probability that this El Niño could push past every event recorded since data collection began in 1950. That is not a small claim. That is scientists telling the public, quite plainly, that we may be entering uncharted territory. Australia's Bureau of Meteorology has recorded similarly extreme readings, describing the current ocean heat anomaly as the strongest in their measurement history, which stretches back to the late 1970s. Japan's meteorological agency reported numbers that tied the highest values ever recorded for this time of year, matching levels last seen during the historic El Niño of 1997, an event still remembered for the chaos it caused across the planet. When multiple independent agencies, using different methods and different equipment, all arrive at the same alarming conclusion, it tends to mean something real is happening. So what exactly is driving this sudden intensification? Deep below the ocean surface, a series of what scientists call downwelling Kelvin waves have been rolling eastward across the Pacific Basin since the end of last year. Think of these as massive underwater pulses of warm water, pushing heat from the western Pacific towards South America. Each pulse adds more fuel to the fire. And this year, there have been several of them stacking on top of one another. The result is a reservoir of subsurface heat that climate scientists say is the largest ever observed in modern satellite records. At the same time, the trade winds that normally blow steadily from east to west across the tropical Pacific have weakened dramatically. These winds usually act like a barrier, keeping warm water pushed toward Asia and allowing cooler water to rise near South America. But when those winds falter, the entire system flips. Warm water sloshes back toward the eastern Pacific, sea levels rise in some regions, and the atmosphere above begins reacting to the sudden burst of heat and moisture. This feedback loop between ocean and sky is exactly what defines an El Niño event. And right now, that loop is spinning faster than forecasters expected. The consequences of this ocean anomaly are not confined to the Pacific. Because this region acts as one of the primary engines driving global weather, changes here ripple outward across the entire planet within weeks. The World Meteorological Organization has already warned that above normal temperatures are likely across huge portions of the globe in the coming months, including Africa, southern Europe, the Arabian Peninsula, large parts of Asia, and much of South America. For hundreds of millions of people, that means hotter days, stronger heat waves, and increased strain on power grids and water supplies. Rainfall patterns are expected to shift dramatically as well. Some regions, including parts of East Africa, Central Asia, and sections of North and South America, could see significantly wetter conditions than usual, raising the risk of flooding and landslides. Meanwhile, other areas are bracing for the opposite problem. Southern and eastern Australia, the Indian subcontinent, and parts of Central America are forecast to face drier conditions, which could deepen existing drought concerns and threaten agricultural output in regions already under pressure. One of the most closely watched impacts involves hurricane season in the Atlantic. Strong El Niño events typically suppress storm formation there by increasing wind shear, essentially tearing budding storms apart before they can strengthen. Forecasters have already factored this into their predictions, expecting a quieter than average Atlantic season overall. But there is a twist. Even in a quiet season, a handful of storms can still form, and with ocean waters running unusually warm, any storm that does manage to develop has the potential to intensify with startling speed. While the Atlantic may see reduced activity, the picture across the Pacific Basin looks very different. Both the eastern and central Pacific tend to become more active during strong El Niño years. This year is shaping up to follow that same pattern. Hawaii, in particular, sits directly in the path of increased typhoon and hurricane risk when El Niño strengthens. To this degree, and local emergency agencies are already updating their preparedness plans accordingly. If you find weather stories like this fascinating, do not forget to like this video and subscribe, because we cover developments like this as they unfold. What makes this event especially concerning to scientists is not just its raw intensity, but how quickly it has escalated. Researchers describe El Niño as a slow-burning phenomenon, one that typically builds over the better part of a year before reaching its peak. Yet this year, the pace of warming has stunned even veteran climate researchers who have tracked ENSO cycles for decades. Weekly readings in the most critical monitoring zone have jumped by fractions of a degree, almost every single week since early summer, a rate of change that some describe as unprecedented in the modern satellite era. There is also a broader climate context that cannot be ignored. This El Niño is developing on top of a planet that is already running warmer than at any point in recorded history, following consecutive years of record-breaking global temperatures. Layer an intensifying El Niño on top of that existing warmth, and you get a combination that climate scientists warn could push certain regions into genuinely unprecedented territory. It is the difference between a wave hitting a normal shoreline and a wave hitting a shoreline where the water level has already risen. Marine ecosystems are feeling the impact just as much as the atmosphere above them. Warmer surface waters interfere with the natural upwelling process that brings cold, nutrient-rich water up from the ocean dip and isle. Thus, that upwelling is the foundation of entire marine food chains, feeding everything from microscopic plankton to the largest fish stocks that coastal communities depend on for their livelihoods. When that process slows down or stops altogether, fisheries can collapse almost overnight, and the economic ripple effects can last for years afterward. Coral reefs are another casualty forecasters are watching nervously. Extended periods of unusually warm water can trigger widespread coral bleaching events, where reefs lose the colorful algae that sustain them and turn ghostly white. If temperatures remain elevated for too long, bleached reefs can die entirely, destroying habitats that took centuries to form and that countless marine species rely on for survival. Given how extreme this year's ocean warming has already proven to be, marine biologists are bracing for one of the most significant bleaching seasons in recent memory. So where does this all lead from here? According to the latest model runs from more than 24 international forecasting centers, this El Niño event is expected to keep strengthening through the rest of this year, likely peaking sometime between late autumn and early winter. From there, most models suggest it will begin a gradual decline, though some agencies caution that the event could persist well into next year before fully fading. Nobody's predicting an overnight resolution, which means the effects described here are likely to remain part of the global weather conversation for months to come. Economists are also starting to pay close attention to this unfolding pattern, because history shows that major El Niño events rarely stay confined to weather charts alone. Past strong episodes have driven up food prices worldwide, disrupted shipping routes, and forced countries to import staples like wheat, rice, and corn after droughts damaged local harvests. With this year's event already tracking toward record territory, agricultural analysts are warning governments to prepare contingency plans well before winter arrives, rather than waiting to react once damage is already visible in the fields. The comparison many scientists keep returning to is the legendary El Niño of 1997 and 1998, an event still studied in classrooms and cited in disaster preparedness plans decades later. That episode reshaped weather across nearly every continent, triggering floods in parts of South America, drought across Southeast Asia, and one of the most damaging wildfire seasons Indonesia had ever experienced. Some of the readings coming out of Japan's meteorological agency this July matched that same 1997 benchmark. Almost exactly, which is precisely why so many experts are choosing their words carefully instead of dismissing this as just another routine ENSO cycle. There is also a human dimension to this story that often gets lost in the technical jargon of sea surface temperatures and ocean indices. Coastal fishing communities from Peru to Indonesia depend on predictable ocean conditions for their daily income, and a disruption of this scale can upend entire regional economies almost overnight. Farmers who have planted crops based on decades of seasonal patterns may suddenly find themselves facing unexpected drought or unseasonal flooding, forcing difficult decisions about what, if anything, can still be salvaged from the current growing season. Power grids are another area experts are watching closely, particularly in regions expecting unusually intense heat in the months ahead. Hotter than normal temperatures translate directly into higher electricity demand as air conditioning usage spikes. And in some areas, that added strain has historically led to rolling blackouts during peak summer and autumn months. Utility. Companies in multiple countries have already begun adjusting their seasonal demand forecasts to account for the stronger than expected warming signal coming out of the Pacific. Meteorologists stress that no two El Niño events unfold in exactly the same way, even when the underlying ocean readings look similar on paper. Local geography, competing climate patterns like the Indian Ocean dipole, and even random atmospheric variability can all shift how severely a given region actually experiences the broader event. That uncertainty is part of why forecasters continue emphasizing probabilities rather than guarantees, even as those probabilities climb higher with each passing month. Still, the overall direction of the data leaves little room for doubt that something significant is underway. Researchers monitoring the situation are relying on an enormous global network of tools to track these changes in near real time, from moored ocean buoys scattered across the tropical Pacific to satellites capable of measuring sea surface height down to the centimeter. This unprecedented level of observation means scientists today have a far clearer picture of an evolving El Niño than they did during previous historic events, allowing warnings to reach the public earlier and with greater confidence than ever before. For now, meteorologists and climate scientists across the world are doing exactly what the situation demands, watching closely, updating their models constantly, and preparing the public for a season that could look very different from what recent history has taught us to expect. Whether this event ultimately breaks records or simply ranks among the strongest ever observed, one thing is already clear. The Pacific Ocean is sending a signal that the entire planet cannot afford to ignore, and the coming months will show just how far-reaching that signal turns out to be. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the next update on how this historic event continues to unfold.